You are now tuned in to the Edge Work Podcast with David Pagnotta, Dennis Bernstein, and Zack Bodenstein.
Welcome back to another edition of the Edge Work Podcast alongside David Pagnotta and Dennis Bernstein from the fourth period. I'm Zack Bodenstein, and the trade deadline is over. We're back to sleeping, not refreshing Twitter. Dave is like the most thankful for this out of anybody.
Yeah, it was trade deadline month.
It
wasn't trade deadline day. So I think I speak for a lot of people when I say I'm very happy it's over. Yep. And and we got a playoff push coming, so I'm looking forward to that. But also sleep.
Yes.
Lots of sleep, less of this.
Definitely the healthier way to go about it, for sure.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All that, the Red Bull and coffee and espresso, and my best friend's my espresso machine right now.
Well, I mean, it kept you alive, it kept you afloat during that whole madness. I mean, we're going back to the Bo Horvat trade. We're talking about a month, like you said, nonstop movement, things back and forth. I assume a lot of things were close and then didn't end up happening. There were reports of JVR going to Detroit, then he wasn't going to Detroit. What happened there, if you know at all?
It's still a little bit of a head scratcher because I don't know if Detroit was the end destination.
Right.
Like I think there was some talk. I haven't been able to confirm it, but there was some talk that they would get him, move him to another team, take back a deal because they retained on 3. So there were just some question marks there. And then Stevie Yzerman coming out saying we were never going to buy, which I think was true, but it's just a weird situation. A lot of people thought it was done. I think, I don't know who reported it first, whether it was Dregs or us or Elliott or whomever, but around the same time, everybody kind of got the same amount of information, and we're like, okay, well, it's Detroit, this is weird. And then it didn't happen. So Detroit ended up pulling the chute on it, but I think there was another deal that was coming that resulted in JVR going somewhere else, but regardless, it didn't happen.
Wouldn't have made much sense if Detroit were to buy after all the assets they sold off. So yeah. I guess that would make the most sense. DB, a lot of deals were made, though, and some teams loaded up, some not so much. In your mind, pick one per conference. Who were your winners of the trade deadline, DB?
Okay, so if I can put Dmitry Orlov on my third pair and Tyler Bertuzzi on my third line, and I've lost 8 games in regulation this season, I won. Boston. And I know what the Rangers did, and I applaud them for addressing their right wing situation. But the Bruins adding those 2 players, and I know they're banged up front with Hall and Foligno, but still, to add that quality on top of what they have, I don't know. Zach, maybe it's just their year.
Yeah. Those were just that, just Hathaway alone. Like, Hathaway is Marchand without any offense. Like, he's that agitator, that grinder, that in-your-face kind of guy, and he fits the mold of the Boston Bruins perfectly. So I like that. Dennis mentioned Dmitry Skorlov, or Orlov with 2 R's, or whatever the hell you want to call him. He fits in great. And yeah, by playoff time, freaking Tyler Bertuzzi's on your third line. That's pretty good. I know he wasn't having a good season in Detroit, but whatever. You put him in a different environment, a better environment. He gets back to the basics. He gets his basics, and it's a lot. So Boston, right up there. No quite. The thing is, like, I like a lot of the moves that a lot of teams made. Like, I like what Toronto ended up doing. I like what Tampa did in bringing in Jeannot, regardless of what they gave up. I like Dallas. I thought Dallas would do a little more, but I like the fact that they brought in a couple of pieces, Dadonov and Domi. So I like
New Jersey
Meyer
with Meyer,
right? Exactly. Yeah, was just about to say Meyer, and that's a long-term play. So I mean, all of that. I like what a lot of teams did. I like what the Rangers did. Every team that added, every top-tier team that added, it made sense to me. It still makes sense to me. The Rangers, they'll figure out their little rut and get out of that. But I don't want to give a cop-out answer, but like, every major team that made big moves, all those moves made sense.
Yeah, a lot of teams loaded up, and you're right, they made sense because they addressed certain issues. You touched on Dallas for a second. In your mind, was that the West team that prevailed the most from deals? We saw LA make a trade. Colorado made a more minor one. So we talked a lot about the East, but in the West, what's the team that stood out to you?
So you mentioned LA. And I know DB's going to hit on this. I like the Gavrikov ad. And Korpisalo, in a better environment, is a better goalie than what we've seen from Jonathan Quick. I love Jonathan Quick, but he's having a bad year. He was in LA. Now, that situation could have been handled a hell of a lot differently and better.
Mm-hmm.
But I like those ads. Like I said, I like the Dallas ads. I thought Dallas could have done a little bit more. They were looking for a defenseman by the end of it. Time just kind of ran out, so they weren't able to pull that off. But I like the fact that they brought in Domi, who's having a good year. He's on an upswing, performance-wise, rather. He's going to be a free agent again. He's going to want to cash in properly. So I like that ad. I like Ekholm in Edmonton. That's exactly what all this Carlson and Klingberg stuff that they were going at. How much freaking offense do you need? Connor, Leon, Hyman and Nuge and all these guys. You needed a shutdown guy. You needed a responsible, smart shutdown guy, Matthias Ekholm. They needed defensive two-way styles on their bottom six, Nick Bjugstad. They made some strong additions that fit. Is it enough? I don't know because of that goaltending, but those were smart additions that the Edmonton Oilers made. So I like them. I like what LA did. I like what Dallas did. I don't know if it's enough for Winnipeg. And Colorado's just chilling, waiting, ready to pounce. And that's probably worrying everybody.
DB?
Well, LA, because they addressed the two needs of area of opportunity, right? They needed a left side defenseman. They chased Chychrun. They got Gavrikov. And I joked with Gavrikov after their last win. I said, look, you guys are 3-0. You ready to sign an extension here? So he goes, yeah, I am. I'm like, okay. That's some breaking news. But and the goaltending situation, as Dave mentioned. So they addressed specific needs. Same thing with Edmonton. They needed that left side defenseman that could shut down people. So no question. But Dave's right. I say thing that I echo the same sentiment Dave does. They need saves in the playoffs, right? They have enough offense. You traded off Tyson Barrie because you got enough. And I'm sure Bouchard will run the power play fine. So I think those are the two. In Dallas, they didn't to make an ad, but I certainly think because of addressing specific needs that have been there, LA and Edmonton to me are the two top movers in the West of the trade deadline.
DB, in the spirit of the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, who struck out looking in the trade deadline? Who were the losers?
All right, well, in the East, we mentioned the JVR at the top, so he didn't get traded. The Flyers, I don't know what Chuck's doing over there. So that not to make any moves like that. I think number one with the non-playoff teams, the playoff teams, unless Puljujarvi is going to turn into Max Pacioretty, I don't like what Carolina did. And look, they did an under the radar move. Shane Gostisbehere had a great season.
Very good. Yep.
For Arizona, and that was a solid move. But they didn't replace what they were losing in Max Pacioretty. So, and that's my concern with this team. Look, I picked them to win the Cup. I still love them. They don't give up a lot. But I look at the goal totals on the team. There's a lot of guys in the teens. I get nervous, especially if it's Devils Rangers in the first round. The Rangers get through. The Rangers are not scared of the Carolina Hurricanes. They beat them last year in the playoffs because their best players played great. They went down there a couple of weeks ago to Carolina. The Rangers won 6-2. Breadman scored 4 goals, and now they have Tarasenko and Kane. That's the concern I have. I just don't think Carolina, they needed to add more offense up front. They may win it all. They're a really good team. If they play the Bruins in the conference final, it could be a Game 7, 3-2 final in overtime. But they needed to add one more player. That was my concern. Because Puljujarvi, like I said, unless he morphs into Max Pacioretty, and I don't think so, I'm not sure there's going to be enough front to get through the East the way it is this year.
And Dave?
Yeah. I you know what? I don't even – there's all the talk, well, they didn't have Pacioretty. They only had him for 5 games. Yeah, but he was supposed to be that deadline acquisition, effectively, because he was hurt.
Right.
And so they wanted to have that boost in offense. And then they didn't get it. And I agree with DB. I love the Gostisbehere ad, but that's in the back end. and he's going to benefit the power play as he has already. But they needed to get somebody up front. So I'm concerned with how this is going to move forward for the Carolina Hurricanes because everybody else got that much better in the East. Philly, WTF across the board. Like Justin Braun wasn't even freaking traded.
Right, there's the other guy. Yeah.
Now they moved out Patrick Brown, pending UFA, but you're telling me you couldn't get a 6th-round pick or something similar for Justin Braun? And JVR, they waited too long. They pulled in Arizona, except they had no more time.
Oh, wait, Dave, they got Brendan Lemieux, too. Okay, a 5th-round pick.
Right. Yeah, Brendan Lemieux, who was reportedly falling out of favor in LA anyway. And there were some back-end issues there. So, and by the way, and you know what? Totally forgot about that. Zack McEwen to LA. Beautiful. Brilliant. Add that toughness in. He's a guy that can keep up in their bottom 6 and their 4th line. Sorry, I got to get back to that because that's a primo. Like that is an important add for a team that when you get into the postseason and you've got star guys that you don't need getting dirty, Doughty, Kopi, Fiala, Kempe, and so on, Byfield and all and the younger kids on that team. You don't need them doing the dirty work. And Gavrikov's not afraid to muck things up, but you brought him in for a reason too. Adding Zack McEwen holds other teams accountable. Love that ad. So I like what Philly did moving him out, but overall, I question what Philly ended up, pulling off there or not pulling off. And we know there's going to be talks in the offseason. We have a report this morning on the 4th period that they're seriously contemplating a front office overhaul, which includes GM and probably an AGM and even some of the advisors and whatnot in Philly. So we're probably going to hear some noise once the regular season ends in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
maybe that's why they couldn't make big moves.
One thing's for sure, that team looked destined for something great during the COVID year, and then things shut down, and in the bubble they couldn't get it done. But since then, it's just been a whole level of mediocrity and kind of inactivity as well. So certainly would be interesting to see what happens in Philly. A team that I don't expect to have a lot of overhaul in their front office is the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've won the Eastern Conference 3 years in a row. They've won 2 Stanley Cups out of the last 3. Guys, this team is not this bad. But this is probably the worst stretch we've seen under this regime so far. And this is even going back to 2014, 2015, when they made the first Cup final appearance with this club, with this squad. Dave, what's going on in Tampa right now? You've got 20-something games. You've got some injuries on the back end now. How do you figure it out?
I think they're just screwing with us. Like they're too good. They hit a rut. They got a little ahead of themselves. They needed to come back down to earth a little bit. And if somebody's able to do that and do it the right way that resonates with the guys, it's Jon Cooper. So what he's saying publicly, he's saying tenfold privately. And he's making sure the guys know before he goes out there and rips them a little bit in the media. And I don't blame him for that either. They needed a little kick in the pants, a little boost, and they got it. Better performance against Philadelphia. 5-2 win Tuesday night. They needed that. Even just a confidence boost. And yeah, I know it's Philly, but just a confidence booster of playing a better game and getting a W and doing it when you're not super tight. So, because it was a 5-2 game. But I think they'll be okay. I think this is just a little mid-season rut that they were in. Like the Rangers, a bit of a mid-season rut right now. I think they get out of it. I think, things start to wake up there in Manhattan. But with Tampa specifically, a bit of a rut. Guys got, a little too comfortable and just needed to be reminded that you're still playing in the NHL.
Well, they've given up a lot of goals, Zach, so it's clear they needed to trade for a goaltender at the trade deadline. Breezeball was doing.
Right, exactly.
Here's the thing. What are they playing for right now? They know who they're going to play. They don't care about home ice. So what difference does it make? Like Dave said, it doesn't make any difference. They're going to play Toronto. It's going to be a long series. They have the better goaltender. Should you panic? Why would this team panic? They made the Cup final 3 years in a row, and this is game 62 in a season that now we already predetermined who they're going to play. So Is it concerning? Yeah. A brilliant move by Coop to bench those guys. Like the one thing you want to do, get people's attention, piss them off for one game, and everybody goes home and says kumbaya and loves each other by the next game, and they go beat Philly 5-2. So I'm not concerned. I don't really care. The only thing in the last 20 games, don't get hurt. Like the only thing they should be concerned themselves about. So if you ever want to use load management, like that's the team, because they're always ahead of the curve with stuff like trading 9 guys or whatever it was for Tanner Janot. I love that trade. It's probably my own favorite trade because the guy identified somebody. He said, I don't care what he costs. And all these other picks that I gave away, they're not going to turn into players in the NHL. Brilliant. So the same thing. You might see load management from this team where Hedman sits out and Stammer sits out and Cooch sits out. Maybe this is the team that does it, because now we're actually drifting towards the NBA because of all this activity, the trade deadline that we're trading picks from 2026, which I thought I'd never see. Right. So, so worried about Tampa. I'll worry about Tampa when they're down 3-2 in the first round in game 6. That's when I start worrying about this team.
Well,
up until then, until they play an elimination game, I'm not worried about it.
Well, it's Toronto, so I don't know how worried I'd really be given their track record. But you're right. Like 11 points ahead of Florida, the next closest team that could catch them in the Atlantic Division. Like I think they're just they got a little too comfortable. Just needed to be reminded. Like it's okay to lose right now, but don't put up donuts in the second period against a team like Carolina when you're trying to send a message to them. Unless you're mind bleeping them, like I don't even know the benefit of doing that at this stage. So yeah, DB's right. They know they're going to play the Leafs. The Leafs know they're going to play Tampa. Leafs had home ice last year, I think. Tampa still got the job done. I don't think they're too worried.
What I love about the Janot trade, DB, is everybody's talking about Meyer as a future play. Janot's only 25. He's got RFA rights, so this is a guy who could stick around. We've seen them get these value deals done as well, boys, with guys like Brandon Hagel, who I guess was already under contract. But these guys are affordable, and they're sticking around for a while. So
Nick Paul,
Janot trade. And you're trading away picks that probably won't end up being players either.
And the other thing, guys, just quickly, if this team starts to flounder in 2-3 years, the amount of trade capital they have to recoup those picks, you worry about it then.
Exactly. Yeah. DB's muted. Got him. There you go.
Yeah, I'm a Rams fan. Yeah, so we won 5 games this year in LA Rams, but we won a Super Bowl 2 years ago because we traded all those damn picks. Like that's the price you pay, right? Exactly.
Trade-off.
You know what? You can't worry about 3 years from now if you're a general manager in this league. Like you might not be around. So the trading of these picks, I just think it's great. I think it's fantastic. So yeah, look, Tampa Bay. I've said this a couple of weeks now. Brisebois playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers in this league. Like he makes ahead of the curve moves, and they seem to pay off. And look, is that maybe Boston gets through. Anybody going to be shocked if Tampa comes out of that division? No one is, right? Because they still have the goalie who's been proven in the playoffs, and that's a big difference between Tampa and Toronto. On paper, pound for pound, they're very similar teams.
Yep. Until
you go to the net, and then we'll see what happens.
We've been talking about this on the show for a while, that they like to coast, and then when it really matters, they really start to turn up the heat. So never count out the Tampa Bay Lightning. Doesn't look good right now, but I had a Leafs fan say to me yesterday, they don't look good. I'd rather them look bad right now than closer to the playoffs. I said, would you? I mean, they're going to start catching fire at some point, we know. So we'll keep an eye on the Tampa Bay Lightning and see if they're able to turn it around. A big win yesterday against I know it's the Flyers, but they look pretty good in that, 3 power play goals. Maybe that turns the team around. A lot of teams on the bubble, Dave, you mentioned the Florida Panthers, so that's one of them. A lot of teams have these more or less split odds to get in or out. So we're going to do a little in and out segment here to see who in your mind gets in the playoffs, who gets out. And then you guys also have the option to place no bet. If you don't want to touch it, you don't have to. So we're going to start with the New York Islanders, DB. New York Islanders plus 105 to get in the postseason, minus 135 to miss it. So what do you see with the Islanders this year?
Well, I vacillate with the Islanders because a month ago I said they're definitely getting in, and then 2 weeks ago they lost a bunch of games. Because of goaltending and defense and not really believing in the other teams that's in that group, I will say they're in.
And Dave?
I agree. I think, with Matt Barzal, with the team staying in it and staying in terms of a wild card spot, I think Barzal comes back a little sooner than expected and helps give this team a bit of a boost. I think they stay in.
See if JG Pagnotta comes back too. That's a big piece they're missing right now. So if they get healthy, they can certainly make some noise. How about the Buffalo Sabres? DB loves this team. Thinks they're so much fun, talks about them all the time. Right now, the odds say that they missed the postseason. They're plus 300 to get in, DB, minus 400 to miss.
Zach, I think it was last week, I started thinking, okay, so who could beat the Bruins in the first round? Like, is there a team that really could upset them with a great season? I'm like, maybe it's a team that scores a lot. So who scores a lot? Oh, the Sabres. Like, they have what? The best or second best offense in the league? And then they went to Boston and proceeded to lose 7-1. And that's what this team is about. Like, they look so good on some nights. They look really, really good. And then they just lay giant dinosaur eggs on the ice. They're too much of a tease for me. If I'm betting on them, I'm not betting on them to make the playoffs. It's great to see people back in the building. You saw that the building last night against Edmonton and Connor McDavid, which you hope they would. But I just don't think they're going to come up a bit short because they're way too inconsistent. They're not enough good defensively. So I'd say no on the Sabres right now. Dave?
I concur. I think they're the teasiest team to ever tease this year because they get right there and then they lose 3 in a row.
Right
and then they win 4.
So
and
close.
Then they fall back again. Like, I can't figure it out. Like, again, and we've talked about this all season. They are going to be in the playoff mix next year. They will.
No question.
They're going to add. They're going to get better. They're following the path that Kevin Adams and his staff have mapped out. I like the Greenway addition. Get him in there. Get some confidence under this kid again.
Yep.
But it's like, don't expect him to be a big impact guy this year. But get him eased into the system and get him going for next season and on. So I think they're cute, but there's just not enough for me to go all the way.
Yeah, there's so much to like about this team right now going forward. Jeff Skinner's playing like himself again. You've got some really exciting young players. Like, you've got guys like Peyton Krebs on your third line and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I love Oposo as a leader. I think this group can really gel and do some damage next year.
Dylan Cousins coming out to show this season the way he's performing. I love it. I really, really like this team, but they're not there yet.
So the Buffalo Sabres, both of you say, will be out of the postseason picture for this season. How about the Ottawa Senators, Dave? They add Jacob Chychrun at the deadline. They move some money around to make that happen with Nikita Zaitsev going out to Chicago. Right now, heavy favorites to miss the playoffs. They're minus 1,000 to miss the playoffs, plus 640 to get in. Are you a Sens believer, or is the magic just run out?
From a pure betting standpoint and taking risks, I would take the plus 600. This tells me I'm going to lose money. So this tells me I want to take that bet. This tells me I'm going to lose my bet. I don't think they make it. Similarly to Buffalo, I like this team. I like the makeup. They got to make some changes in the summer. I love the Chychrun ad, but I think they're going to come up just short.
Did your heart watch the game against Chicago?
Well,
obviously you didn't. The heart didn't watch that game.
No,
that's the game that you win easily. That's the game you win easily, and you move on to the next.
Yep.
And not that they lost it. How they lost that game. You're not ready to make the playoffs. You're not ready. It's okay. Nope. Great season. Love Brady Tkachuk going to war against everybody. Wants to fight the whole freaking team. You watch that game?
Who wants some?
That's like that's the Buffalo-Boston game. 7-1. Oh, we're close. Yeah. That's worse loss. That's a worse loss. Now, can they bounce back from it? Of course. If they're pros, you hope they bounce back for it. You watch that game and say, okay, this team is not emotionally prepared to win yet. They're too young. There's too many holes. And because of that, and look, the people back in the building in Ottawa, which is another great thing, but I can't pick them to make the playoffs. I just can't.
Right there. Just like Buffalo. Right there. Different discussion next season.
Definitely makes for a very interesting Atlantic race next year. When you're talking about Buffalo And Ottawa now being in the mix with the big three, maybe Florida turns some things around because they're starting to play some better hockey too. It's actually the next team we're going to talk about here. The Florida Panthers looked like there was no way they were going to get in. At the start of the year, they were a shoo-in. Boston was supposed to be the bubble team. Things have really flipped around, but Florida's got some good players having good years. They're getting healthier as well. The goaltending's starting to come along, Dave, but the odds makers still say they missed the playoffs at -200. They're plus 160 to get in. This is an interesting one. Do you think they make it above the cut line?
I'm not touching it, just because it's not worth it for me on either end. Because this team, they look so good. They're the other tease, but they're a different kind of tease. Because they look so good, and then it's like they turn their back on you. Like, at least Buffalo's trying most nights. But Florida, they do so much, and then they're like, yeah, and then they just kind of drift away. And that's how I view them. So can they do enough and maybe push, I don't know, Pittsburgh, out of the mix? Maybe, but maybe not. I'm not sold in either direction of Florida. Would I be shocked if they made it? No. Probably surprised.
Well, the last two wins against Pittsburgh and then last night against Vegas were impressive because they only gave up one goal.
True.
They won 4-1 and 2-1. So if I had to bet one team, Zach, to make the postseason, I would have the Islanders out, Panthers in. So I think that's what it's going to come down to because they are a more veteran team. They have more established stars. I would like this team. I still like the Islanders over the Panthers. I think they have Pittsburgh has games in hand, so I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to fall out. The one team that I would think I really think there's 9 for 8 in the East, and I think the 9th team right now is the Panthers. So if the Islanders were to play replaced by a team, it would probably be Florida.
Yeah, definitely an interesting race in the East right now. So Pittsburgh not really convincing many people. A big win yesterday, big comeback win, but it was Columbus. Yeah. They've also never missed the playoffs under the Sidney Crosby regime. So we'll see if Pittsburgh ends up sliding out, but you're probably right, DB. I'm with you there. Calgary, is Jacob Markstrom good now? Who knows? What is this team? What has this team been all year? Markstrom's starting to play better. Huberdeau's getting some points. It's been a very weird year in Calgary, DB. That said, odds makers still say they're -200 to miss the playoffs, plus 160 to get in. Can Calgary turn things around here? Because the goaltending was such a strength last year. It's starting to come along. Big win against Minnesota yesterday.
I would say not no, but hell no. But I'll just say no because I'm not liking Winnipeg right now. They're really backing up. They're 2-6-2 in the last 10. They're 4 points ahead. They have a game in hand. On Calgary, that's the concern. Yeah, and look, they had 2 big wins. Look, Tyler Toffoli's been a godsend for this team. Like if he wasn't on this team, and I know Markstrom's playing better, he scored big goals for this team when they really needed games. But they're an average team. They're a 500 team. I mean, if they had lost, if they hadn't got a break last night on that offside goal, they would have lost 14 games after regulation in 65 games. They just don't score enough. And again, we didn't talk about winners and losers, but they didn't have they had Richie and Stetcher, and that's your ads at the deadline when you can't score. I would say no at this point in time, and if it's a no, then you might see some seismic changes in Calgary as Dave's reported over the last month or so.
You will. You might. There's no might. There's going to be. I'm staying off it because Winnipeg scares me a little with how they're doing. But I mean, Connor Hellebuck has been phenomenal. So. This might be their little stretch rut that they're in. So just from a purely you never know standpoint, I'm going to stay off it. But I'm not expecting it. I think the West is set with their 8 teams. I just don't see enough from I think it's too little too late for Calgary. Markstrom may finally have woken up. Too little, too late. Toffoli's doing great. Huberdeau's woken up. Too little, too late. Mangiapane might score. How many games they got left? Whatever the hell it is. 20 goals, 20 and 17. Too little, too late.
Here's the thing with Calgary. They've got 71 points. So let's say 95 makes it. So they're going to have to go 12-5 down the stretch to get to 95. That's a big ask. So that's why the odds it would be against them to making it because they haven't played that well this season.
You know, in the East, we were saying like Buffalo and Ottawa, they're like tease teams. Calgary's not even a tease team.
They're not.
They're just like,
It's just average.
yeah, they're jerks.
Yeah.
They're like stringing you along for no reason.
Yeah, like last night they even scored a goal, and they don't score goals. I mean, short of a Mark's great performance by Markstrom, they're just not impressive. They have some guys who are really, really gamers on that team. It's helped them.
Yep.
Even the guy I mentioned, Toffoli, Dylan Dubé, has been great for them. Like, right, but when you mention Toffoli and Dubé, they should be depth guys, and they're leading the charge right now because, like I've mentioned, like numerous times on the show, when you have 82 goals walk out the door and Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Tkachuk, it's hard to replace.
I find it interesting that, you're talking about off-season overhaul in the front office, and this is a team on the bubble. Which direction do they go? And all they add is that Nick Ritchie, Troy Stecher. It doesn't make much sense. Like, they're kind of stuck in the middle right now.
I don't know if they could. I don't know if they were allowed to make big changes.
That makes sense.
Summer. Let's wait for the summer.
It definitely makes sense. So, basically, just to recap, Islanders probably get in. They have the best odds out of all those teams we talked to get in, but Florida could maybe jump them. We're kind of on the same page here that the West is set, which means the Kraken would get in for the first time in history, and it would make for quite an exciting postseason. I know the East certainly loaded up more than the West did, but the West is still competitive.
You mentioned Seattle. Their long history, by the way.
Yes.
That's a team I'm disappointed didn't make any moves.
Agreed.
Didn't make any ads. I think they've won 5 in a row. Great. But I think there was an opportunity for them to make a couple of moves here to really push them a little bit ahead. And I'm disappointed they didn't do that. They were in on JVR. They were in on a few others. They had some cap issues that they tried to MacGyver through. Didn't work. It blew up.
It's funny about Seattle, though. Remember when they went on the road and won all 7 road games?
Yeah.
And set some record, like nobody's ever done it. And people are like, oh, okay, they're a playoff team. Now they've won 5 straight, and people are like, I'm not really that impressed. It's like the mindset's changed. And I know they had that rough patch there where they didn't play well, but it's just weird that they've won. And like with Vegas, until last night, Vegas has powered through with all the injuries and making moves and getting Barbashev and Quake and stuff like that. They've won games. Same thing with Seattle. So look, I've said this before. I have to check the schedule. I don't know who plays who, but you can have a playing game for the division title in the Pacific at game 82. The unfortunate thing is that more and more people starting to refer to the East as the varsity and the West as the JV. So I'm not sure that, whoever comes out short of a really healthy Colorado, which I don't think ever happens. I don't know if there's an overmatch this year. Not unlike the NFL sometimes. The AFC is better in times, and there's ebbs and flows. So it's going to be interesting to see who actually comes out.
Look, I don't care who's in the Stanley Cup final. Doesn't matter to me one way or another. Just make it better travel than Colorado Tampa from last year, please.
How about Raleigh Calgary? Or how about Raleigh Winnipeg?
That's worse. Oh, that's the worst. Travel wise, to pull off Winnipeg to I'm not looking because I don't even want to jinx myself. Crying.
Yeah,
and I'll be thrilled for those fan bases, but the travel is going to suck.
Last year, was not ideal. And I think they had like 2 days off or something just for travel, and definitely not ideal. So we'll see what the Stanley Cup final is this year. And if it's closer in proximity, maybe we'll get Chicago someone in the Stanley Cup final.
Not this year. Chicago. I don't know about this. Just give me something where there's a direct flight and multiple.
Yeah, exactly. Like LA, New York. Again, let's get LA, New York.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's easy. Sure.
Boston, Dallas, something like that.
Beautiful.
Boston, Vegas.
Chicago thing was a joke. But the Bedard Bowl is very interesting because, I've been tracking these bottom of the standings like it's crazy. The Sharks will get close, then they'll win a game. They'll come back and beat Winnipeg for some reason.
Right.
It's fun, though. I mean, tracking this genuinely is fun for the fans. I think this is something that not a lot of people really pay attention to unless you're in these fan bases. But these lottery simulators, Dave, a lot of fun. And I think a lot of fans are having fun scoreboard watching the other teams and hoping they win. It's just such a fun little thing to do. And it's so unique, especially when you've got a guy coming up in the draft like this year. I think a lot of fans are having fun with the lottery simulator and just tracking the bottom of the standings.
It's the top 4. Like, okay, you lose out on Bedard, but then your consolation prize is Fantilli. Okay, I'll take that. Oh, you lost those two guys? Shucks. Well, you got Leo Carlson.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll take that. Oh, crap. We lost those three guys? Mishkov's next. Okay, I don't know who's after that. I got to pay attention. But Zach, you know. But I'm looking at these games and I'm going, Montreal, what the hell are you doing? Why'd you get a point against Carolina? Why'd you get another point? Arizona, why are you winning these games? What are you doing? Like, I know the guys want to win and all that stuff, and I'm not, forget the athlete side of things, just the principle of it. I'm going, you really? Columbus, you pulled off a win the other night? Okay, good for you. Could piss your fans off if you don't get number one, I'll tell you that.
Clayton Keller said it best. He said the GM probably hates it. We're probably pissing him off, but we're winning games. Players don't tank. We know that. And you guys know players. You guys talk to players. Like, you can't tell an NHL player that losing is fun in any context. Game 82, they could be out of it completely. They will still give it their all.
The mindset's changed now because they're expected to continue to lose. Well, it's a big FU to everybody that thinks that because they're going to want to switch that mindset and pull off some W's. And if you want to piss your GM off, keep saying that. He'll sit you for tank-related reasons.
But the fans got to understand you're playing for ping pong balls. You're not even guaranteed you're going to pick this guy.
I know.
And even if he comes, and look, I know the guy's all world. I see all the things in the WHL, and they make it all. And generational player, that's great. Doesn't mean they're going to go. Ask how many cups has a generational player won in Edmonton?
Right. Look, I'm doing one right now on Tankathon.
Okay. Tankathon,
lottery simulator.
Go ahead.
No, top Dave. 3. Columbus stays first overall. Chicago moves up 1 to 2nd. San Jose's got 3rd. That's it.
Great.
That's it. Okay, let's do it again for fun. Ooh. All right, this gets moved. Arizona first overall. See? Billy, it worked. Philly gets 2nd overall. Columbus gets 3rd, and everybody else stays the same. All right, whatever. Still fun to do.
Just the prospect of getting one of those top 4, top 5. Talk about Zach Benson. Like, it is a loaded draft this year. So 2015, I'm still a believer. That's my favorite draft of all time. That's McDavid, Eichel, Marner. Dylan Strome went before Marner, by the way. But this one, 2023, could be astronomical. And I'm so excited to see who picks where. And everybody who watched the World Juniors and anybody who's paying attention to hockey whatsoever understands what's at stake here. So it is hilarious just watching these fans argue on Twitter and talk about how they want their own teams to lose. They're cheering for other teams to win. Go Yotes from a Sharks fan, whatever. It's just fun. So, but yeah, I can tell you right now, Dave, Habs fans, you're from Montreal, they're not happy right now. They're like, what? They would feel better if guys like Stavkovsky and Kirby Dach, they're carrying them to wins. But no, it's Alex Belzile, it's Michael Pezzetta, and it's Jake Allen. And I don't think they like that.
Yeah,
and Harvey Bernard.
Yeah, exactly. Raps kicking in. If you're a Habs fan, you get basically 2 picks in the top 16 in this draft because of Florida's. That's really good. Be happy about that. Arizona as well. I just did it again, by the way. Philly, Columbus, Buffalo. Buffalo moves to 3rd.
Wow.
Sabres fans, rejoice. You get Leo Carlson. Leo Carlson on that frickin' team?
Yeah. Well, they like their speeds.
They do. They got Darlene in there, who's probably going to be a finalist. All right, I got to stop with the stupid simulator because I'm getting everything's changing on me.
Please,
fun.
But Washington just got 2nd overall. Great. But yeah, look, this is the exciting. You're chasing the playoff race, and then you're watching the bottom of the standings because you want to see what's going on. Is your team losing? Are they winning? Is Erik Karlsson tossing his helmet at refs? Like, it's a fun time in the NHL right now on both sides of the equation.
Exactly. Cheering for your team to win, cheering for your team to lose, both beneficial this year with this upcoming draft. So, guys, that is the Edgework Podcast, episode number 7. We'll be back next week. Of course, you can check out our best bets of the day at 10:30 Monday to Friday. That's at Edgework. Subscribe to us on Twitter and on YouTube. You can check us out on Spotify as well. And we will see you next week.